bien y listo. Exactamente, live long and prosper. Pues ya nos vamos, se nos fue rapidísimo otra vez una misión más de Tecnocasters. Mi querido Beto, una vez más tus redes sociales, por favor.
Beto Nájera, ahí me puedes encontrar, tú nada más le pones, ya sea en Instagram, en YouTube, en el mismo Facebook, ahí nos vamos a poder cotorrear, en Spotify también, que a mucha gente, a mí me gusta mucho solamente lo auditivo, me encanta escuchar solamente eso, se me hace algo divertido. Irónicamente, cuando algo no suena bien, la gente lo deja de escuchar. Pueden verlo todo borroso y lo siguen de cualquier manera viendo, pero algo auditivo, el consumidor lo rechaza y afortunadamente tiene buena calidad mi audio. Así
eso,
que
yo sé, yo lo escuché, así es. Mi querida Monse, ¿en dónde te podemos acosar?
@Montesira89 en todos lados, Instagram, TikTok, hasta Twitter tengo por ahí, todos los lunes 3:30 de la tarde de la Ciudad de México en HIC, y ahí también pueden ver a mi querido Juan Guevara.
Así, y a Casian, ¿eh? Casian hay que conocer, es un tema, Casian. Pero bueno, pues les agradecemos muchísimo. Como siempre, una emisión más de Tecnocasters is in the can. Le invitamos a que vea Tecnocasters todos los viernes a las 4 de la tarde, hora del tiempo del centro de México. Y hora del tiempo del centro de Estados Unidos. Aquí nos vemos en Tecnocasters y lo mismo de siempre, HIC 3:30 de la tarde, México, a través de El Heraldo Televisión. Soy Juan Guevara, su experto en tecnología. Nos vemos, pórtese mal, cuídese bien. Gracias.
Adiós.
This has been a Now Media Networks feature presentation. All rights reserved. Broadcasting from Now Media Network's headquarters in Houston, this is Purple Politics, hosted by political expert and commentator Alina Gonzalez-Dockery. Join us to discuss the most important issues affecting our nation with fresh, balanced, and objective discussion on the first bilingual media network in the United States. Purple Politics starts right now.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Purple Politics. I am Alina Gonzalez-Dockery, your hostess, and I am thrilled to start our show with wonderful, happy tidings, and that is the news that Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich freed in the largest East-West prisoner swap since the Cold War. Evan Gershkovich, a Wall Street Journal reporter, was released by Russia as part of the largest East-West prisoner swap since the Cold War. The swap involved more than a dozen prisoners jailed by the Kremlin being exchanged for Russians held in the U.S. and Europe, including a convicted murderer. Gershkovich had been wrongfully accused of espionage and sentenced to 16 years in a high-security penal colony in Russia. He and other Americans, including former Marine Paul Whelan, yes, our Marine is coming home, and journalist Alsu Kurmasheva were released at an airport in Ankara, Turkey, following extensive diplomatic negotiations. This complex deal involved 24 prisoners in at least 6 countries, highlighting the intricate diplomatic efforts required to pull off such a great thing. So congratulations, President Biden and your administration. This, I applaud you. Biden praised the successful negotiations, emphasizing the unjust detention and suffering the freed individuals had endured. The U.S., Russia, and Germany played key roles in the negotiations, with Russian hitman Vadim Krasikov being central to the arrangement. He was actually the linchpin to the arrangement. CEI Director William Burns and other U.S. officials traveled extensively to secure the deal, showcasing the lengths to which the U.S. government went to ensure the release of our citizens. Krasikov, a convicted murderer, a hitman, and former intelligence officer, had been a priority for Russian President Vladimir Putin since 2021. His inclusion in the swap exemplified the leverage autocratic governments can exert through state-sponsored hostage-taking. And that is what is happening. We had the ballerina that's still being held in prisons of Russia. And as we're seeing more of the freeing being, kept under falsified or trumped up charges. Things that could not happen here in the United States thanks to our due process rights. But the Biden administration faced criticism for potentially encouraging further detentions by engaging in large-scale prisoner swaps. However, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan defended the administration's actions, stressing the importance of bringing innocent people home. The prisoner swap also underscored the asymmetry between the U.S. and Russia, with Russia able to detain foreigners on spurious charges. The Biden administration has pursued several significant prisoner exchanges, including deals with Venezuela and Iran, raising concerns about incentivizing the arrest of more Americans. The State Department has classified certain countries, including Russia and North Korea, as posing a high risk of detention, advising Americans against visiting these abductor states. Gershkovich's detention and trial were widely condemned as unjust, with his court appearances gaining significant media attention. His supporters, including journalists and public figures, campaigned for his release, emphasizing his wrongful detention. Alongside Gershkovich, the swap included other notable figures, such as Vladimir Kara-Murza, a British-Russian dissident. Despite this successful swap, other Americans, like history teacher Mark Fogel, remain detained in Russia with ongoing efforts to secure their release on humanitarian grounds. Now, who is the man behind Putin's key demand in prisoner swap? Prompting Germany in this multi-nation deal, releasing convicted murderer and hitman Vadim Krasikov. Vadim Krasikov, a Russian hitman and former intelligence officer convicted of murdering a Kremlin enemy in Berlin, once boasted that the Russian Federation will not leave me to rot in jail. This statement proved prophetic as he was released by German authorities on Thursday as part of the largest East-West prisoner swap since, as we reported, the Cold War. Russian Vladimir Putin had personally demanded Krasikov's return, intending to send a message that the Kremlin would pursue its enemies wherever they fled and protect loyal operatives. Putin's interest in a swap involving Krasikov was signaled in a February interview with former Fox News host Tucker Carlson. You remember that infamous interview where Tucker was enjoying his time in Russia and had that long, extensive interview with Putin. Putin, during this interview, described Krasikov as a patriot who eliminated a bandit, indirectly referencing Krasikov's assassination of Zelmikhan Kongoshvili in Berlin. And I apologize to all people that I am slaughtering this name. In August 2019, Krasikov gunned down Kongoshvili, a rebel leader, in broad daylight in a Berlin park, an act a Berlin court later concluded as a state of terrorism on behalf of Russia. The murder was carried out in a gruesome and public manner to intimidate the Kremlin's opponents. Krasikov's conviction in 2021 highlighted his extensive background with the Federal Security Service and his involvement in other killings, including those inside Russia. Putin's efforts to secure this release of a loyal operative has precedence. In 2004, after Qatar convicted 2 Russian agents of a high-profile assassination, Russia arrested 2 Qatari athletes in retaliation, eventually leading to a swap. Similarly, Krasikov, married to a Ukrainian woman and linked to clandestine FSB operations, maintained his fake identity throughout his German trial, with Russian officials consistently denying his true identity. Krasikov's tattoos, symbolizing his association with Russia's elite security forces, helped German investigators identify him and secure his conviction. After his conviction, Krasikov was moved to various prisons in Germany due to security concerns. He enjoyed the rights guaranteed to prisoners in Germany, including access to work, professional training, and leisure activities. It was noted for reading Soviet-era literature that glorified Kremlin secret agents, something that our own American prisoners and other national prisoners in Russia do not enjoy. Authoritarian regimes worldwide are increasingly detaining foreign citizens arbitrarily, leveraging them as geopolitical bargaining chips. This trend, traditionally associated with terrorists and insurgents, now presents a significant challenge to Western democracies, especially as countries like Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea collaborate amid conflicts in Ukraine and the Middle East. The asymmetry in this dynamic is stark. Democracies constrained by rule of law and independent judiciaries, by our own constitutional protections to free trials, cannot reciprocate by seizing similar hostages. This constraint limits their options, even as hundreds of citizens from the U.S. and allied nations remain imprisoned for political reasons, with Russia recently detaining several Americans. Bina Najibullah of the Sufan Center highlights that democracies' care for their citizens makes them particularly vulnerable, an advantage authoritarian states exploit. Iran has been a pioneer in state-sponsored hostage-taking since the 1979 capture of American diplomats, continuing the practice in Lebanon and Tehran's Evin prisons. Over the past decade, numerous American and European citizens have been detained in Iran, often traded for cash or Iranians held in the West on terrorism or money laundering charges. Iranian-American businessman Siamak Namazi, who spent 8 years in Evin, describes the grim reality of such hostage diplomacy, where nations like Iran face minimal reputational risk, but significant gains. China and Russia have joined Iran in detaining Western academics, tourists, and journalists, including Wall Street Journal correspondent Evan Gershkovich. Smaller nations, including North Korea and Venezuela, and even U.S. allies like Turkey, have engaged in similar practices. The erosion of the international norms and increased hubris among authoritarian states exasperate the problem, as highlighted by Michael Kovgrib, a former Canadian diplomat detained by China. Despite Western democracies' attempts to mitigate the risk of issuing travel warnings and codifying protections and wrongfully detained citizens, the deeper cooperation and collective responses among democracies are necessary to impose real costs on autocratic regimes and deter further hostage-taking. As Carla Festman from Essex Law School emphasizes, without a united front, individual governments' attempts at separate deals will only encourage more such incidents. But for now and for today, we can celebrate that through huge diplomatic efforts among several Western countries and Putin of Russia, we are now seeing 3 U.S. citizens being returned to their families in much celebration and reunion. Once again, I congratulate President Biden and his administration in being able to pull off this, and I call on them to now work even harder to be able to free the U.S. citizens that are still being held hostage by Hamas in Gaza as they are continuing forward, coming on closer to a year. We're going to take a quick break, and we will get back into presidential campaign news.
If you're on supplemental oxygen, heavy and awkward tanks can be a burden. Now you can leave home and leave the tanks behind with Inogen, portable oxygen therapy that moves with you.
With my Inogen, now I'm able to do the things that I've always loved. I just press the button here, and there's my oxygen.
Inogen systems are so small and light, you're free to leave the house without the hassles of an oxygen tank.
I could play golf again. I could go grocery shopping. I'm free again.
With the Inogen, I can handle my own oxygen. I can carry my own oxygen. I go anywhere with this. Look how small it is.
And right now, you can try an Inogen portable oxygen system for 30 days risk-free. Call us right now. If you qualify, we'll send you an Inogen system to use for 30 days risk-free. Your insurance may even cover your new Inogen system.
If you're on oxygen, you need to be using an Inogen.
Call 800-367-1753. That's 800-367-1753.
Are you nearly maxed out on your credit cards? It doesn't matter if you're using your credit cards for fun or to survive. At the end of the month, your statements come in, and you can either pay them or you can't. If you can't, late fees and interest rates get tacked on. And now you're struggling just to make the minimum payment due. Do you feel trapped? Am I talking to you? Good, because I personally researched some companies that can help you. They may be able to reduce your credit card balances by 50% and stop the late fees. If you qualify, please call our special debt hotline number right now for a complimentary free 5-minute consultation. Deal with your credit card problem now before it gets much worse and put more money back in your pocket. Trust me, I've been there too. Call right now.
Call 855-993-2096 right now. That's 855-993-2096.
As Vice President Harris wraps up and basically will be anointed soon by the delegates of the DNC, she is the presumptive Democratic presidential candidate. And as such, she is now adjusting, more so like backpedaling and trying to rebrand herself from policy positions that she herself instigated with her bid for her failed bid in 2020 for the Democratic presidential nomination. So as VP Kamala Harris gears up for her 2024 presidential campaign, she is facing scrutiny over shifts in her policy position since her 2020 run. And let's face it, right now, she's the hot ticket. I mean, forget about the assassination attempt. That got maybe a weekend's worth. The RNC was the other week. Then everything since Biden dropped out has been Harris. And the media, mainstream media, which is at fault for much of what the divisiveness that we are experiencing in this nation and hits to our reputation internationally. They want to be kingmakers because the bottom line is since 2016, they flubbed it. They were shocked. They were gobsmacked that Hillary Clinton, their candidate, did not win. So they made sure that they would do everything they could to push their agenda. Look at what happened to Biden. Prior to that debate, everything was good. Biden was excellent. He was perfectly capacitated. He had an incredible brain. He was the fastest working person anybody knew. And then they thrust him out. And now VP Kamala Harris, in the rebrand of all rebrand, in that she has to backpedal from her extremely progressive viewpoints and policy administration, because let's remember, prior to her being vice president, Kamala Harris in Senate was the second most progressive senator in the U.S. Congress behind only one other, Bernie Sanders. So the campaign, which mainstream media has not been pressing her feet to the fire on her sudden shift of her policies, has had to address changes in her stances on key issues like fracking, healthcare, border control, and police funding. Let's not forget, Kamala was out there, while campaigning to be the Democratic candidate, promoting the zero bond and defunding the police, and also the fundraising for bail for rioters, not peaceful protesters, the rioters, the ones that were causing violent outbreak during the BLM 2020 summer. And also her basically, she has to backpedal that. Back in her senatorial time, she analogized ICE, immigration control and enforcement, to the Ku Klux Klan. These adjustments reflect a broader effort to align with the Biden administration's moderate policies, which honestly, let's face it, they have not been that moderate. I want to do a little history because I'm sorry, it's time for me to be me. In that Biden was pulled out of retirement in 2019 because the Democratic Party realized they were going to lose another election and Trump could potentially win a re-election, another term of years, if they didn't pull him out, because he was seen as a moderate. He was supposed to be good old Joe, the true Democrat, and a moderate. What ended up happening is he is one of the most progressive presidents that we've had, and he has, in fact, been pushing very much the agenda that Bernie Sanders wanted. Fact of the matter, Bernie even stated it himself. Now, one of the things that Kamala has an issue with, she is going to have to now rebrand herself as a moderate, that she wants things, to be consensus building and what is in the best interest for all United States, for the vast majority. Because again, the vast majority of us, especially of us voters, don't want extreme fringe progressive movement. We don't want an extreme right MAGA. We want something common sense. So she's rebranding herself. But she does have to diverge from that progressive platform. Harris's previous support for banning fracking has been contradicted by her current stance. During her 2020 presidential campaign, she committed to a federal fracking ban, citing environmental concerns. However, recent clarifications reveal she no longer supports such a ban, a shift likely influenced by the political and economic realities in battleground states like Pennsylvania, where fracking is a significant industry. Similarly, Harris has revised her position on healthcare. Initially, she advocated for total banning, total closing of all private health insurance and advocating for Medicare for all, eliminating private insurance. However, her later proposal allowed for a gradual transition to government-backed system while preserving private insurance options. Now, also, let's remember that because she has the ability, she was once a senator and now vice president. You got to remember, everybody, she doesn't fall under what these senators, these congressional members, these House of Representatives and president and vice presidents, they don't have to deal with what we deal with. They don't even go, the congressional members don't even have Social Security. They have a special retirement plan for themselves. They don't have Medicare. They got a special type of insurance for themselves. So it is hypocritical at best that every time they consider something is a better thing, or that this is what we should have, we people need, it tends to backfire. I mean, as great as Affordable Care Act had some significant improvements, what it ended up doing was causing a lot of small businesses to go out of business or having to lay off individuals or go part-time because of the cost of the insurance was exorbitant. On immigration, Harris's 2020 campaign position was to open up the borders. We should have free open borders, eliminate ICE, and, let's face it, she was supposed to be what the media calls her the borders are, but she was placed by Biden to take care of the border, and she may have gone down there once, and she has failed at this task. And she is now all of a sudden all positive and for police funding. This is a former attorney general. Here's the thing. She's running as tough on crime and look at her record as attorney general, but yet she doesn't want to be put down. And nobody seems to be questioning her except for maybe news agencies like myself or like major media sources that are questioning her. Well, wait a minute. You were pushing defund the police in 2020. You were behind a lot of the fundraising for bail for violent protesters, for rioters. You were all for $0 bail for significant crimes, which is now being implemented in much major blue cities and states like New York City. So Harris now is backpedaling and trying to say that, hey, America, we apparently have a very short memory. We are either ADD or something like that, and we're not going to remember the fact that that Harris, who had a small surge when she was running back in 2020, when she attacked Biden, saying he was a racist and calling him out, that this is an individual who has not received one vote in a primary election to be the candidate. And I, for one, am not also, this is the other push, and I'm hearing this over and over, not only on individuals and social media, and you have every right to your opinion, but this will be mine. I find it incredulous that there are certain individuals in the media telling women that this is our time to shine. If we ever want a woman in as president, that this is the time and we need to back Kamala Harris. Well, no, because it shouldn't be about whether she's a woman or a man. Could you imagine if Fox News, CNN, male reporter said, this is the time for men to get to, boys and men to join together and vote for President Trump because it's a he versus she thing? That would be absolutely called out and extolled as sexist. And it is sexist. Vote for the individual you want. If you want to vote for Harris because she's a woman, great, have at it. That is your right. And that's the beauty of the United States of America. But you know what? I believe in the voters, and I believe that the vast majority of voters, especially the independent, non-party affiliated voter, are more concerned about the policies behind a candidate than whether the candidate is a female, whether the candidate is black or brown, yellow, or white. Now, saying that, can someone please muzzle Trump? This is Donald Trump's election to lose. For the first time, the polls today show that Harris actually has a lead. And in major leads in significant states like Michigan. However, it is also a surge because look at all of the press, look at all of the excitement behind Kamala. And you know what? She has now invigorated and re-energized the Democratic base. But you know what? Trump going to the National Association of Black Journalists, which I mean, right off the bat was hostility. The very first question was putting him on the defensive, being hostile. And honestly, that didn't show much decorum and professionalism, in my opinion. However, for crying out loud, Trump saying that Harris has openly embraced her identity as a Black woman, that this was a recent development, questioning her racial identity, because when she was first voted as in the Senate, she was the first senator of Indian descent. Who cares if she's Black? Who cares if she's Indian? You know what? Let's celebrate the fact that she is a multiracial national woman that is incredibly successful in her careers. I'll give her that. And let's not demean her, because I hear this often, because now, oh, she must be Black, like Alina Gonzalez saying, I know my background. This isn't about Black or white. This shouldn't be. I mean, my God, we have been long past this, and now this is all we talk about. So Trump focusing on personal attacks, this is so, I mean, it's so disingenuous for him to say in one breath, this is about unity, this is about bringing the country together, this is about being a president for all people, and then attacking women, attacking men. It's just, the personal attacks have to stop. And you know what? With all of this controversy, with everything heating up, Harris is positioning herself as a leader committed to confronting divisiveness and promoting unity. And you know what? That is the key to her success. She needs to reach that independent, because God only knows, no matter how many times, and I'm sure if he had proper campaign advisors, they would be telling him, you need to stop feeding into your base. Your MAGA Trump loyalists are going to be there. Trump needs to he needs to get those disenfranchised Republicans and independents that are on the fence with policy. Harris is speaking to them, supposedly. She does her little tricked up things and changes her accents depending on the audience she is above. She's performing above. I mean, personally speaking, yes, I have a Southern accent because I grew up in a Southern town. And I don't particularly enjoy the fact that this woman who was born and raised in Berkeley, California, and in Canada starts putting on a fake accent. It's unnecessary. So we're going to take a quick break. Yes, I got on my soapbox, and we will continue with more news of how democracy is being attacked, but yet is it the Democrats pushing it? Tune back in.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
Do you have a car sitting around you want to get rid of? Well, here's a great idea. Donate your car now to help local veterans in your area. Yes, just make one fast call to the Veteran Car Donation Program. Within a few days, we'll come and remove your car for free. You can donate any car in any condition. We'll use our vast network to sell it. The proceeds raised go to help local veterans and their families. And you get a tax deduction. And all you need to do is make this free call. Clean your yard up, get rid of an old car, and help the vets. We make it easy. Make this free call now. Book your fast and easy pickup. Call the Veteran Car Donation Program now.
How would you like to go on a 5-star vacation for just $99? We're talking about the quality of a Westgate resort for $99. Not for one night, but for 3 fantastic nights at one of their luxurious destinations across the United States. And you'll even get a free $100 Visa gift card just for making a reservation. We've got some of the choicest destinations that you'll love in the United States that you can choose from for just $99 for a 3-night stay. Take your family, take a special loved one, but get away. Go on vacation with Westgate Resorts. Call now to make a reservation for just $99, and you get a free $100 Visa gift card. Call Westgate right now and book your vacation. Here's the number.
Call 877-930-3491. That's 877-930-3491. Again, 877-930-3491.
Well, the soapbox hasn't completely gone away, so let's go further into this. You know, Democrats are crying out, there's a threat to democracy if Trump wins re-election. Personally speaking, Trump is not going to be an autocrat. He doesn't have the capability. I don't think he has the personality type. Do I truly believe that in his heart he loves this country? Yes. Do I believe he's an autocrat or want to be an autocrat? No, because the bottom line is an autocrat has to be a student of history, it's all on him. Everything, the good, the bad, the ugly is all on him. And let's face it, Trump is somebody who does not like to take accountability. Trump likes to blame everyone but himself. So he needs to be surrounded by his yes men and his fall guys. But let's talk about a true threat to democracy. The Democrats pushing to overhaul the Supreme Court of the United States and the judiciary, which is an equal and separate branch of government. We are 248 years old of a country, and our founders 248 years ago had the foresight to realize that in order to maintain this republic, to preserve what has been created, we need to maintain an executive branch, a legislative branch, and a judiciary branch as three equal branches. But Congress seems to forget about that, especially now the Democrats. Biden is demanding end to presidential immunity. The court made a ruling for one. President Biden has called for a constitutional amendment to overturn a recent Supreme Court decision granting former presidents immunity from criminal prosecution for actions committed while in office. This appeal, made during a speech at the Lyndon B. Johnson Presidential Library in Austin, Texas, includes endorsements for a mandatory ethics code and 18-year term limit to Supreme Court justices. How is that? Hypocritical. That is what that is. Biden, who has spent his whole adult lifehood, his entire adult lifehood in government power. 40 years as a president, 8 years as a vice president, and 45 years as a congressional member of our country. Give me a break. Chuck Schumer, who's also now picking up this bill and trying to introduce this bill of term limits. I mean, hypocritical term limits for the Supreme Court because it is a life appointment. How devastating is this that we are now seeing our Constitution being rattled, our government being rattled because of what? But yet, how about this? Hey, congressional members, maybe you should put term limits on yourselves because we have term limits for a president. President Biden likes to say, well, I have term limits. For God's sakes, of course you do, but you don't have any under Congress. Because as Barbara Feinstein, who died in her 90s as a member of Congress, was there, 40-some years? This is ludicrous. And it's pandering because they think we are that stupid, by the way. They think we are so dumb. You and I, the voters, the constituencies, the citizens, the residents of the United States are so stupid that this is going to fire us up. Every time they cry out that Trump is going to be the ruin and end of democracy, that democracy as we know it ends it, then they do this foot and mouth. But it's not foot and mouth. It is actually staged propaganda that is truly threatening the very fiber of this great country. Because though other countries have constitutions and other countries have judicial things, they do not have the protections we have. We just talked about it. Look what happened. Turkey, Venezuela, Iran, Russia, China, North Korea. Other countries are taking citizens of other Western countries and arresting them under bogus charges. So Biden expressing a deep concern about the Supreme Court's decisions in Trump v. U.S., which he claimed effectively allows a president to violate the law without facing consequences. He may beware because you got to remember there were some other things that under former administrations like himself may have been violated and now he will be immune from. But of course, prosecution's not going after him because supposedly he has senility issues. The president's call for reform comes as a response to growing progressive frustrations. Now, remember, he's a moderate. Progressive frustrations with the Supreme Court shift to the right. Now, you know what? I also want to say this. Let's correct this misnomer. Yes, we have only been seeing the big decisions. That's what the media likes. But the reality is the Supreme Court, regardless if Biden wants to acknowledge it or not, or whether he really knows about it or not, The vast majority of cases that go before the Supreme Court of the United States are actually dealt with either unanimously or with a vast majority for and maybe a couple dissents. And even on some of the key U.S. Supreme Court decisions that recently came out, like restricting administrations, the bureaucratic administrations that are not supposed to be implementing law, but through their regulations have been doing some severe civil liability, some criminal liability, some losing of jobs, has stated that they overstepped their bounds, and this cannot be done by an administrative hearing, but it has to be dealt with by a judge, so that there are actual proper due process procedures in place. Again, our constitutional rights. And you know what? That was not what they like to say party lines. That was a decision where Supreme Court Justice Jackson, joined the majority to say, yes, this has been abused. And the administrative body needs, these agencies need to be held accountable and pulled back, because the only one who can provide laws are Congress. And maybe if Congress would actually work together and do what's right for the overall good, not just for the power bees, not just for the progressives, not for the, extreme Freedom Caucus or MAGA, but for the general consensus. If we can do that for everybody, get back to a point where, hey, Congress, by the way, your job is supposed to be working bipartisan. It's not about the powers of the Democrats or the Republicans. Hello, can we get a third party in there? I would love it. But this is just pandering. This is just fodder to stoke up the fears of the people, because it's continuing fear mongering. Because if anything, Schumer, Biden, the Democrats, and then you had the Republicans and Freedom Caucus, what they are in is a monarchy of fear. And unfortunately, the fear is being eaten up by the spoonful, by us, the constituents, until we say no more. So Schumer now vows end-of-year judicial reform. First of all, this would have to be a constitutional amendment. It would have to be passed by 70%. This can't be a law, because no matter how much AOC, this is called civics education, and Schumer, who knows damn well, if the shoe were on the other foot, if we flipped the situation and it was a liberal court majority, this would never stand a chance. So where are the people? Where's the ACLU decrying this? Because honestly, as lawyers, as ACLU, we should be standing up and saying, enough is enough. Stop messing with our judiciary. Stop messing with the third branch of the equal branch of the government, and stop messing around. Do your job. But no, he just wants to try to push this through. In addition to the No Kings Act, which is the immunity, Senate Democrats are exploring potential statutory changes to pose these term limits and ethical rules so that they can bring impeachment charges like AOC tried against Clarence Thomas on the Supreme Court. Of course, the Republicans are opposing, and rightfully so, these measures. But the bottom line is, would it even hold constitutional muster? No. But how about this? If you want us, we the people, to buy into term limits for a judiciary, which, by the way, it takes some time for a judicial person to gain their foothold, okay? Why not first start with your home? Do not cast that first stone if you live in an incredibly fragile glass house, and that is Congress. But you know what? Schumer's only biting, he is like hook and teeth. He's the one who drove that knife in Biden's back. And now he's going to do whatever Biden wants to get the judicial nominees before the end of the year. And it continues. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and let's talk about other democracies that are being threatened internationally. I am Alina, and we'll be right back.
If you're on supplemental oxygen, heavy and awkward tanks can be a burden. Now you can leave home and leave the tanks behind with Inogen, portable oxygen therapy that moves with you.
With my Inogen, now I'm able to do the things that I've always loved. I just press the button here, and there's my oxygen.
Inogen systems are so small and light, you're free to leave the house without the hassles of an oxygen tank.
I could play golf again. I could go grocery shopping. I'm free again.
With the Inogen, I can handle my own oxygen. I can carry my own oxygen. I go anywhere with this. Look how small it is.
And right now, you can try an Inogen portable oxygen system for 30 days risk-free. Call us right now. If you qualify, we'll send you an Inogen system to use for 30 days risk-free. Your insurance may even cover your new Inogen system.
If you're on oxygen, you need to be using an Inogen.
Call 800-367-1753. That's 800-367-1753.
Do you have a car sitting around you want to get rid of? Well, here's a great idea. Donate your car now to help local veterans in your area. Yes, just make one fast call to the Veteran Car Donation Program. Within a few days, we'll come and remove your car for free. You can donate any car in any condition. We'll use our vast network to sell it. The proceeds raised go to help local veterans and their families. And you get a tax deduction. And all you need to do is make this free call. Clean your yard up, get rid of an old car, and help the vets. We make it easy. Make this free call now. Book your fast and easy pickup. Call the Veteran Car Donation Program now.
And speaking of threats to democracy or the violation of elections, all eyes are on Venezuela as Nicolás Maduro cracks down on opposition following the controversial election results. Nicolás Maduro's regime is intensifying its crackdown on protests following contentious election results that reportedly confirmed his grip on power. The regime has responded with arrests of opposition leaders and violent suppression of demonstrators. Riot police have clashed with crowds using tear gas and leading to at least 11 deaths, according to human rights groups. The regime's heavy-handed tactics and Maduro's warning of a bloodbath for calling of another rebellion if he lost have escalated tensions across the country. The U.S. has expressed concern over the situation in Venezuela, questioning the legitimacy of the election results. Despite this, Washington has limited options to influence the outcome. Maduro's consolidation of power, including his control over the military, the police, the judiciary, media. Hence, this is a true autocrat. Basically going, he's following in the footsteps of Chavez, who was the hand-picked leader of Fidel Castro, and I feel for the people of Venezuela because Maduro has fortified his position. And the U.S. faces a dilemma between reinstating sanctions on Venezuelan oil, which, by the way, we are purchasing, I believe, at least at one point under this current administration, which could impact global gasoline prices. And I know you and I are both feeling that at the pump. And addressing the broader implications of a prolonged Maduro presidency, which could worsen the migration crisis affecting America's southern border. It is reported that over 1 million to 2 million have already migrated, trying to escape the tyranny and the suffering in Venezuela. President Biden's administration has sought international support to address this Venezuelan crisis. Biden discussed the situation with Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, who has recognized Maduro's victory. However, this position conflicts with Lula's commitment to democratic principles, putting him in a difficult spot. Again, Brazil's been having its own issues with flip-flopping administrations and their own elections as well. However, this position, Democrats have pushed a strong condemnation of Maduro's regime. Boy, that's going to do a lot, emphasizing the need for transparency in the election process. The opposition in Venezuela is presenting evidence of electoral fraud, including a publicly accessible database showing discrepancies between reported results and independent counts. The database suggests that Maduro's main challenger, Edmundo Gonzalez, received significantly more votes than Maduro. The opposition hopes this evidence will pressure Maduro to release detailed voting data, although the regime has attributed delays to alleged cyber attacks. The Carter Center, one of the few international observers, has criticized this election process, citing a lack of transparency and failure to meet democratic standards. The organization withdrew its team due to the Venezuelan government's refusal to provide comprehensive polling data. As a result, the opposition's efforts to reveal the truth about the election are crucial in shaping international perceptions and pressuring the regime. The regime's response to opposition protests has been severe, which is an understatement, including the recent detention of Freddy Superlano, a prominent opposition figure. This crackdown has led to significant unrest, with clashes injuring military and police personnel and damaging government offices. The situation remains volatile, with regional leaders and international observers continuing to debate the legitimacy of the election and the appropriate response to Maduro's authoritarian practices. And following this disputed presidential election, General Vladimir Padrino, the country's defense minister, made a strong declaration of loyalty to President Nicolás Maduro. Padrino's speech emphasized the military support for Maduro. Can you imagine? Even if you have an election that shows that the opposition, Gonzalez in this particular election, won by the popular vote extraordinarily, but you have an autocrat, you have a demagogue, basically, saying, you know what, I won. He announced himself, I won. I don't care. He doesn't care what the electorate says, but on top of that, he is willing to use the military. On top of that, Maduro is calling for a rebellion if the Western countries, you know, as he calls them, the fascists, don't stand down. But when you have the military and the country's defense minister saying, nope, we don't care, we're backing this guy, he's our guy, it's going to be a very long, long road for the people of Venezuela to turn their government around. The opposition has reported a vast discrepancy in these election results, and they are claiming their candidate, Edmundo Gonzalez, won the general election. And so the continuing fueling of this unrest and the protests is playing out in their thing. Maduro is standing strong because he is stating that he won, he is staying in power, and he doesn't care. And if the Western fascists continue to meddle in Venezuela's business, he will call for a rebellion. In other words, he will call for the military to come against their own people. That is what a threat to democracy looks like. That is actually the antithesis of democracy. And the Venezuelan military remains the cornerstone of Maduro's power. The regime faces internal and external challenges. Loyalty of high-ranking officials is secured through rewards and fear, but growing dissent among lower ranks and police officers are increasing international scrutiny. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. But as I have learned looking at history of other countries such as Cuba, listening to my parents' tales and such, the reality is not, our hearts should go out to the people because they're being denied a chance to have autonomy over their own futures by allowing a new government, a new light to be put in. Because unless this government changes, unless the military, maybe the lower ranks, rise up against the hierarchy, Maduro is going to stay in power. It was probably a miracle, that they even allowed an election. But we're going to continue to follow this story as it plays out. There's a lot of people could take heart. Is this, for those that keep decrying that United States is becoming a banana republic, that we are facing a threat to democracy, maybe look towards Venezuela, which is playing out in our very real time. Is that what we really want? Is that what we're saying we're having? Because I'm going to tell you, in my opinion, whether it's Kamala, if it were Biden, if he were still running, or Trump, I truly believe in our people and the strength of our Constitution, that our country would continue to be free and democratic. And now, other international news. Israel claims killing of top Hamas leader amid funerals for assassinated figures. Israel has claimed responsibility for the killing of Mohammed Deif, a high-ranking Hamas leader, in an airstrike on a Gaza compound in mid-July. Deif, who was reportedly involved in the planning of the October 7th attacks on Israel, which begun this war, has been a target due to his prominent role in Hamas's armed wing. However, Hamas has not officially confirmed his death, creating some uncertainty about the accuracy of Israel's claim. The announcement of Deif's alleged death comes amid significant regional tensions following the assassinations of other major figures. This week, we saw funerals of Ismail Haniyeh, a senior Hamas leader, and Fouad Shakur, a top Hezbollah commander. Both funerals attracted large crowds and heightened regional anxieties, as these killings have intensified fears of a broader conflict and complicated ongoing ceasefire negotiations. In Tehran, Haniyeh's funeral was a prominent event, attended by thousands and led by Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Haniyeh had been in Iran for the presidential inauguration of Mossad Pezeshkian, and the circumstances of his assassination, involving a bomb smuggled into his guest house, have stirred strong reaction. Iran and Hamas blame Israel for his death, with Iran promising retaliation. In Lebanon, Hezbollah's leader Hassan Nasrallah condemned both Haniyeh's assassination and the killing of Shakur, pledging a significant response to these actions. The ongoing funerals and public declarations have added to the already tense atmosphere, with concerns about potential escalations in violence. Now, how much more intense escalations? Let's see. Israel is in an active war. Some people would say, no, it's not a war, but it was, because it started by Hamas in Gaza. They continue to have missiles and rockets being thrown their way from Gaza. Then you have Hezbollah. You have Hezbollah, who have been daily sending rockets and missiles into northern Israel, causing Israelis to have to flee their homes in a certain area. And you also have in Lebanon, terrorist organizations are sending their missiles and rockets into Israel, and couple that with Yemen using long-range drones that appear to be from Iran and Russian made. So the escalation is here. It's just how much further are we looking at? Because the rising fears are of this broader Mideast conflict. And in the worst part is U.S. is perceived as out of control and weak. Because in these past recent months and looking at this, the international community are looking at the instability within our own country. We are a leader. We were once a leader of all nations, especially the Western nations. And our perception, the perception of our strength, is weakening because of all of the disenfranchisement that we are experiencing here in the United States. It is time for unity. It is time for strength. It is time that we, the people, have a government that actually secures not only our best interest and our safety, secure our borders, secure our armed forces, secure the people here, but also to bring back the time that when we spoke, we were listened to. I am Alina Gonzalez-Dockery. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Purple Politics. I wish you all a wonderful weekend, and I will see you right back here next Friday.
This has been a Now Media Networks feature presentation. All rights reserved.
Are you nearly maxed out on your credit cards? It doesn't matter if you're using your credit cards for fun or to survive. At the end of the month, your statements come in, and you can either pay them or you can't. If you can't, late fees and interest rates get tacked on. And now you're struggling just to make the minimum payment due. Do you feel trapped? Am I talking to you? Good, because I personally researched some companies that can help you. They may be able to reduce your credit card balances by 50% and stop the late fees if you qualify.